computer.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome everybody to our third class in our year-long course, The Content of Our Character. For this month, we have chosen the theme of hospitality to guests because it is so fundamental to Judaism and to who we are as a people and to our value system that, believe it or not, that there is not only the greatness of hospitality to guests, as we've seen over the last two classes, but there is a method. There is the question, well, how? How do I perform hospitality to guests? I'm sure if you were to hear the phrase hospitality to guests, you'd immediately, have a dinner, invite friends over. But there's more to it than that. And here we come to the greatness of Judaism. Judaism, and this is a beautiful way to introduce today's class. Judaism is a system where the beauty is found in the details. Now, if you're a lawyer, you have a slightly different phrase. You usually say, if you're a lawyer, the devil is in the details, but we can't say that about the entire structure of Judaism. So instead, what I want to say is the beauty is found in the details. What do I mean by that? The details are the most important aspects of our lives. And I'll give you the simplest of examples. Let's say I wanted to give you a website address or my email. And I give you my email, but I leave out one dot. Rabbi Fishman at theshah.org. I leave out a dot, right? And you just put at the Shah. You don't put the dot. Will that reach its destination if you don't put the dot? So we have learnt no. We have learned no. Now, this is when we come to email. You're all experts at email because you've been using it now for decades. Let's talk about Zoom, because you're now experts at Zoom as well. You've been using that for the last couple of years. One person doesn't mute themselves. They're doing the vacuuming all the way through the class. It's a disaster. Why? Because you didn't click mute. So the smallest of details can make or break an entire experience. Judaism, when seen through the prism of halakha, Jewish law, is exactly the same. It's not enough to say, well, I'm proud of my Jewish identity. I'm a Jew at heart. How many times have you heard people say that? I'm a Jew at heart. It's good to have a proud Jewish identity. Of course, everything starts from that. To be proud of who one is the beginning. It's the ABCs. But to just fumble our way through our lives, without really understanding that there is a structure to Jewish law, a method to Jewish law, details to Jewish living. So what we're doing is approximating. And while that's an okay beginning, to do something well, to do something properly, is not to approximate. Imagine you've gone for a surgery and you want to know the doctor beforehand. Hi, doctor, can you just give me your credentials? I've watched enough TV to know what I'm doing. I've seen those hospital shows. You'd run out of there. And life is like that. And Judaism is like that, and Torah is like that. So believe it or not, when you have a mitzvah, this is where Judaism is mistaken by those from outside who don't really understand. You have a beautiful mitzvah. Take a lulav and etrog. Appreciate nature every harvest season. And what does Judaism do? How big is the etrog? How dry can the lulav be and still be kosher? How long does the lulav have to be? How green does the lulav have to be? What if the etrog is missing the pitom? Is it kosher anymore? We will go into 100 questions of definition. And it's not because we're ruining the beauty of a lulav and etrog. And I don't know why I chose that example. Every mitzvah is like that. How long, how tall, how wide, how small, kosher, not kosher. inviting guests is exactly the same. How does a person fulfill the Jewish halachic mitzvah of inviting guests? That's what we're going to see in today's class. Stephen, you had your hand up earlier. Question, comment, please. No? Oh, it was a stretch? It was a stretch. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Okay, so let us begin. Okay? Let us begin. And we start with the duties and responsibilities of what it means to have guests. And of course, the primary text of this is once again taken from the life and the story of Abraham. The life and the story of Abraham in terms of how he met guests, how he welcomed guests, how he was able to meet and greet and host those guests. It's all here taken from the story of Avraham. This is taken from a book. It's a beautiful book called Ahavat Chesed, written by the Chofetz Chaim. We've spoken about him many, many times. Ahavat Chesed, it's a book of loving kindness. Isn't that a beautiful title for a book? Loving kindness, where he actually lists how does a person act, what does a person need to do in order to perform these various mitzvot. It's one thing, you put a mezuzah on your house. Okay, I put a mezuzah on your house. Don't cook meat and milk. Okay, I won't cook meat and milk. Have guests. Who? How? When? How does that work? So he wrote a whole book of what it means to perform acts of loving kindness. Let's take a look. In the description of Avraham's hospitality to strangers, the Torah relates how although Avraham was still in pain from his circumcision and the day was hot, he nevertheless sat at the entrance to his tent, hoping that he might spot some passerby whom he could invite into his home. When he did indeed see some travelers, he ran to them, prostrated himself before them, and pleaded with them to accept his offer of hospitality. Although this awesome level of conduct is beyond our reach, we should still learn from here to search for guests and to accept them into our homes with great affection, much as we would act towards a wealthy man for whom we hope to gain a large sum of money. What an amazing twist he adds at the very end. Those last two lines, as much as we would to greet a very wealthy man whom we would hope to receive a large sum of money. Why did he add those last two words? Why do you think? We should invite guests with as much anticipation and happiness as we would, as if we were inviting somebody who is extremely wealthy and we have a feeling we're going to receive a large sum of money. Why did he add those words? Why do you think? This isn't a difficult question. It's a simple question.
Because if you're hosting somebody who, let's say you want money for your school or whatever, you're going to, I mean, not personally, but for, an organization, then you really host them well.
If you think you're going to get something, you're going to go all out. You're going to go all out. Let's say that you think that you're going to get it personally. Terry, you're going to get it personally.
I can't go there. Can't relate to that.
Yeah, I don't think any of us can. Some big billionaires popping over for dinner with a gift. Yes, Aura, why did he add those words?
Yes. Isn't it because the fact of having guests, we have to be, to feel a depth, so to speak, with the guest, because he allows us to perform the mitzvah of Ahavat Chesed, of welcoming strangers. And as such, it's like we are receiving money, from him, not
Amazing.
material money.
Amazing.
But,
Amazing. You're touching on a very, very deep point. I wasn't going to go there. Let me come back to this idea in 1 second, Aura. Let me give a simpler answer, but what you're touching on is a very deep idea. I'm going to come back to that. Susan, yes.
It's about help.
Elaborate. What does that mean?
The money, money is not a good term. It's more about, can I help you? Can we help somebody? I don't think it's just a money thing.
Right, but he finished off by saying that you should act towards them with great kindness, as if, let's take a look at the language again. We should still learn from here to search for guests and to accept them into our homes with great affection, much as we would act towards a wealthy person whom we hope to gain a large sum of money. That's how we should try to search for guests, and that should be the sense that we have.
No.
I think what he's alluding to here is a few things, and that is that oftentimes we might not want to help a person who's knocking on our door. When we're talking about welcoming guests, I don't think he's saying having a dinner party. I don't think that's what we're talking about. Now, I hope this doesn't upset or offend anybody, because for people who love to entertain, I'm not taking away the mitzvah of welcoming guests. I'm not taking that away from you. But if you're inviting your best friends, and it happens to be your close friends, they've got food in their pantry, they're okay, and they're not traveling from far, and they're not exhausted and weary by the journey. In fact, they live just up the road. I don't know to what degree having a fancy dinner party for your friends is the fulfillment of the mitzvah of welcoming guests. It's certainly something. It's certainly something. I'm not saying it's nothing. But I don't think that that's what he's talking about here. I want you to imagine, as shocking as this is, a sudden knock at the door. A complete stranger. When I come for dinner, hi, I'm really hungry. You know, we get here in Israel, maybe you get in your home as well, sudden knocks on the door, people collecting tzedakah. Has that ever happened to you? People collecting tzedakah. When I moved into my new house, I got a call straight away. And I'm like, that's so strange. How did they know we lived here? We just moved in. And then I saw my Israeli, this was still in Montreal. This was a number of years ago. Then I saw my Israeli next door neighbor. And he said to me, he had a big smile on his face. He's like, thank God you moved in. Because when people knock on the door, I say to them, no, you got the wrong address. The rabbi lives next door. The rabbi lives next door. He's like, thank you for moving in as my new next door neighbor. I'm like, so this is how they found out about me so quickly. I think when someone knocks on the door, the first thing we do is we look them up and down, we size them out. I'm collecting for this organization. I'm collecting for this bride and groom. I'm collecting for my children. I'm collecting for medical expenses. I'm collecting for whatever it is. And there's a knee-jerk, almost default reaction of, okay, so I'll give you $5. Oh, I'll give you a couple of coins, you know? And then sometimes they can be a little rough around the edges. And sometimes they might be a bit scruffy. And sometimes they might not look like you and I look like. And sometimes they might not have the same hygiene expectations that you and I might have. And then you say to yourself, my gosh, this person is dirty. This person is literally dirty. Stay there. I'll be right back. You close the door, lest the smell enters the house. It's not nice to say. It's horrible to say. And then you go and you're like, oh, okay, here's $5. Off you go. And there's almost this shooing away. Now, this is just the person asking for money. Imagine the person like that asking for dinner. Or, better yet, the person that's asking for money and you're sitting down to eat. Would you invite that person in? Would you invite that person in? Now, we've been learning for a while with each other.
Of course not.
Of course not. Okay, I was going to give a
Of course
different
not.
answer. Susan, I was going to give a different answer because Susan, I was going to say, we've been learning with each other for a while now. And from the little that I've come to know of you, I would say each and every one of you would probably say yes. Because you appear in my eyes like the type of righteous individuals that would probably say yes. Now, keep everything I just said in mind. Keep everything I just said in mind. And now, Bill Gates is at the door.
Oh,
Bill
Okay.
Gates has just rung your doorbell.
and we know.
Hi,
and we
I
know
wonder
it's
if you can
him.
help me. I'm lost in a strange set of circumstances. I haven't eaten in a long time. Can I come in for dinner? It's now Bill Gates. Oh my God, please, please. You throw your husband out of his seat, like get out of there. Give him the head of the table. You would fall over yourself. And you know nothing about his personal life. You know nothing about his moral life. You know nothing about his interpersonal life. You know one thing and one thing only, his bank balance. And our society, I'm not talking about you now, I'm not talking about you, but I think generally speaking, our society places great honor on wealth. On wealth. When we are in a social setting and somebody enters the room who has great wealth, there can be a response of behavior based on that person's wealth in terms of his social standing in society. Wow, she just walked in. She just walked in. Now, it's not wrong to admire other people. There's nothing wrong with admiring other people. And wealthy people can indeed be admired. But if they're only admired for their wealth, that's something Judaism has an issue with. Because in Judaism, what we admire in another person, it's the title of this course, it's the content of their character. The content of their character is how we view another person's social standing. And, by the way, their wisdom. And, by the way, their wisdom. When a person is wise, when a person has amassed knowledge, when a person has learned lots of Torah, when a person is able to teach and give over knowledge to others, that also is how Judaism has seen a great sense of honor. But the content of one's character is how a person is seen in terms of their social standing according to a Jewish system. If they're only honored because of their wealth, something's missing. Now, our society has gone absolutely haywire. How so? Because we honor people, they don't even have to be wealthy. We honor people because they're simply famous. Why are they admired? Because they're famous. They might not forget having wisdom. And I'm not going to use examples, but you can fill in the gaps in your own mind. They might never mind having wisdom, never mind having wealth. They might simply be popular. They might simply be famous. They're famous because they're famous. And then we'll give them a chat show host. And then we'll give them a talk show on television. But could you imagine a person that has nothing? And we would run to greet them and we would welcome them in and we would sit them down at our tables. I think that's one of the hardest things in the world. I think that's one of the hardest things in the world. I did this once, not because I welcomed a guy collecting money into my house. I gave him dinner. I gave him dinner. I did it not because it was the first and only time I did it in my life. I want to go on record, and I don't want you to think that I'm a pious, righteous individual. I'm just not. So I'm not the type of person that every single person who knocks on my door, I'm inviting in for dinner. That's not who I am. However, on this one occasion, this person looked downtrodden. He looked downtrodden and he just looked desperate. And my heart broke. He knocked on the door, my heart collecting some tzedakah for some, I don't know. And my heart broke. And I said, would you like to come in for dinner? And he's like, sure. Of course he's like, yeah, absolutely. It was leftovers from Shabbat. I put it in the microwave. I don't think I did anything particularly holy or righteous. So I put in it was like chicken left over from Shabbos. I put it in the microwave. My wife and kids come home as I'm in the middle of dinner with Mr. God knows what his name was. And she opens the door. Now, thankfully, my wife has seen me do a variety of strange things in my life. So she's never one to jump too hastily of, what are you doing? There's always like a raised eyebrow and, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what the story is this time. And so she walks in and she stops in her tracks because you can see this person, his clothes are dirty. They don't fit properly. He smells a little bit. He's rough around the edges. He's a little gruffy. And she's like, hello. And I said, hi, Shmulik is joining us for dinner. I don't know what his name was. And she's like, oh, welcome. Hello. And she just went with it. I have to tell you, it was a life-changing moment for me. Because how often do you look at another person who's gruff, who's rough around the edges? Now, again, this person might have been a righteous individual, but just from his demeanor, just from his clothes, just from his personal hygiene, how often do you give a person a meal like that? For the rest of the day, maybe the rest of the week, I couldn't stop thinking about that. Couldn't stop thinking about the fact I gave a meal to somebody. It was like a highlight of my week. And this was years ago. The fact that I remember this and that I'm sharing it with you, again, hear me carefully. I'm not sharing this story with you, so you should think I'm more than I am. I'm really not. And I'm not much more than what you see anyway. But I share it with you because it was one of the highlights of that week, and I still remember it. Now I want to go back to what Ora said 5 minutes ago. Ora stated a deep truth, and our sages actually give voice to this. When a person comes knocking on the door asking for help, the Talmud says, who is doing for who? So in most cases, you think, well, the homeowner is doing for the poor person. There they are. They put their hand out and they say, can you have some tzedakah, you get charity, and you give a coin. So who's doing for who? Classically, the homeowner is giving and doing for the poor person. But the Talmud says the exact opposite. It's such a Jewish thing. Listen to this. In a case where a poor person is collecting money, knocking on the door of a house, more, I'm quoting you directly, listen carefully, more than the homeowner does for the poor person is doing for the homeowner. Yoter mima shebal habayit oseh la'ani, ha'ani oseh lebal habayit. More than the homeowner is doing for the poor person is actually doing even more for the homeowner. How so? And Ora mentioned this, but I'd like to articulate it. It's very important. Because in that moment, the poor person is facilitating you being involved in an act of tzedakah, involved in an act of righteousness. Had he not knocked on the door, You would have gone about your day watching Netflix just as you ordinarily were. Sorry, it's you. You would have gone about your day learning Torah just as you ordinarily do. But what's happened now? This person knocking on your door has interrupted your ordinary day to give you the opportunity to be involved in an act of righteousness. Amazing. Amazing. So more than you giving a coin into his hand, guess what? He's giving you, what is he giving you? The opportunity to perform an act of loving kindness. Incredible. Okay, comments, questions? Good? Okay, let's go forwards. Anyone? Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, yes, Terry, what did you want to say?
You know, I have also had somebody ringing the doorbell often. And what if the content of their character isn't, well, you know.
They're driving you crazy.
Right.
When they, listen, to every interaction, there's two halves. We know, or we're learning right now, what our behavior is or should be. There's also a correct behavior on behalf of the other individual who might be driving you crazy. Now listen, is there a way to request tzedakah? Is there a way to ask for help? Absolutely. And yet, the rule of thumb is that when it comes to our behavior, we're in charge and responsible for our own actions and our own behavior. Someone else's behavior, if it's not in keeping with our own expectations that we have for ourselves, let us then judge them favorably. When it comes to another person's behavior, the only responsibility we have towards them as far as their acts and behavior is let us judge them favorably. Because who knows? Who knows? Let's say I was down and out on my luck. Let's say I was unemployed. Let's say I needed the emergency medical. Let's say I needed to marry off the children and I had nothing. How do I know that I would fare better than this person if, God forbid, I was standing where he is standing right now? And what do we say? There's a great classic English phrase, there but for the grace of God go I. Do you have that phrase in Canada? There but for the grace of God go I. Because how would I know how I would act if I stood in their shoes right now? My desperation, the desperation of the scenario may drive me to act in a way which would be very different, perhaps even worse than this individual. So the rule of thumb is to be generous in terms of how we view others, even though, yes, there is a correct way, and you can be a nudnik about how you go about such things, and you can be annoying. But let us do what's upon us to do, and the rest will judge everyone favorably. The Talmud tells a story of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, two of the great rabbis in the Talmud, walking along the road. It's exactly your point, Terry. So you just reminded me of this great story. And a poor person comes up to them begging for money. And Rabbi Yochanan takes out his purse and he gives a coin and he puts a coin in his hand. And Reish Lakish turns to him and says, how do you know that that guy actually needs the money? I mean, it could be on booze, it could be on drugs, or it could just be a scam artist. He could be living in Beverly Hills for all you know, and he's asking for money because he's cheap. How do you know he really needs the money? And Rabbi Yochanan turns to his friend and study partner, and he says, I will give 100 times out of 100. And should it be that there's one person out of 100 that is a charlatan, better that I should have given to the other 99 honestly, and one charlatan, okay, so that's on him. But God forbid someone should ask me for help and I'd not help them, then after 120, I'm not going to be able to have an answer in heaven when God says, a person came to you asking. You could have given them a coin, could have given them a dollar, could have given them a quarter. There's no minimum amount, by the way. You can give someone a quarter, a dime, 5 cents. But let you at least give a quarter or a dime or a dollar to everyone that asks. And let that one person be a charlatan. Okay, let's go forwards. Okay. source 2. How are we doing for time? Okay, wow, I'm sorry. We spent a long time at the beginning. Let's go further. The mitzvah, source 2, the mitzvah of hospitality to guests does not only include taking care of the needs of poor guests, even if the person whom one is welcoming into his home is wealthy and not in need of any material kindness, nevertheless, the warmth and respect which one shows him is a fulfillment of this mitzvah. Amazing. The exact opposite of what I just got finished through saying. You're doing a mitzvah. You're having a dinner party. Beautiful. It's a mitzvah. You're having a dinner party. Wonderful. Wonderful. However, unfortunately, we go out of our way for our friends and our dinner parties. That's the point I wanted to make. That's the point I wanted to make. What happens? What happens? A beautiful question was asked, is there a mitzvah, to say a bracha before performing this act? Because what do we do when we shake a lulav and etrog? We say a bracha first. Before we eat the matzah, what do we say? A bracha. Before you put up a mezuzah, what do you say? A bracha. Before you eat food, what do you say? A bracha. Is there a bracha to say before helping the poor? No. But you're going to tell me that we just got finished through saying it's a mitzvah. Why would there not be a bracha that you say it's a mitzvah, just like mezuzah, matzah, lulav, and etrog? And there's a beautiful answer. You want to know the answer? This is such a powerful answer. Because when someone is in need, with their hand outstretched, looking for help, we don't delay and tarry, even for a second, even for the short amount of time that it would take us to say the blessing. Because when someone needs help, you offer them the help instantaneously. And so Judaism did not create a blessing to be said, for it would be a delay in the amount of time that the person would have to stand there waiting. Isn't that incredible? It's a stunning idea. Okay. What's next? Let's go back to the story of Abraham. Look at what the Torah says. And Avraham said, take some water, box 1, and wash your feet and rest under the tree. I will fetch some bread and you will satiate yourselves. Then you can go on with your journey. What do we learn from that story? Take a look at box 2. Says the Chofetz Chaim in his book, Ahavat Chesed, afterwards, Avraham told the guests to rest under the tree while he prepared their meal. We may learn from here that one should offer his guests the opportunity to rest up from their travels before serving them food and drink. Welcome, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Come into the lounge. Come into the living room. Take a break. Put your feet up. Do you want the New York Times? Do you want me to put on Netflix? Whatever it may be. And then, part C, serving them personally. He, Avraham, stood before them under the tree and they ate. He stood before them under the tree and they ate. Who was bringing the plates to the table? Who was pouring the coffee? Who was the one there? This verse teaches us that Avraham himself stood over them and served them throughout their meal. I want you to know, when I came to Israel a number of months ago, I visited an incredible rabbi, an incredible rabbi, an enormous, big, huge rabbi. I knocked on his door. I had a meeting, obviously. I knocked on his door. He opened the door himself, welcomed me into his house. Can you imagine you wanted to get a meeting with Elon Musk? I don't know. Imagine you wanted to meet Justin Trudeau today. So, okay, I had an email, had to send an email, had to make an appointment, we had a time. I knock on the door. Could you imagine Justin Trudeau answering the door privately? Can you imagine Elon Musk opening the door to his own? This rabbi opens the door, come in. I had a few questions for him. I wanted to discuss something of a Torah idea with him. Can I get you a coffee? I was mortified that he was asking me if I wanted a coffee. It felt so weird. It felt so off. Could you imagine, like, the most honorable person that you can imagine? And they're like, can I get you a coffee? I'm like, can you get me a coffee? I'm not having you make me a coffee. I need to be standing up in your presence. I need to be trembling in front of you. You're such a huge, big rabbi. You've written books. You speak in front of thousands. You're flown all over the world. You're the most important VIP. Yeah, 2 sugars and make sure of milk as well, please. Okay. How was I going to say that to him? And then I'm like, no, I'm fine. He's like, sit, relax, sit. He goes out. He comes he's got a plate of ragalach, a plate of cakes, and he's standing over me. He's like, eat. Obviously very Jewish, but he's like, eat. And I can't explain to you why I was mortified, but there was this weird out of place context, because the only context I know this holy, saintly, pious big rabbi is from, I don't know, the Torah that he teaches, the books that he's written, the throngs of people that go to meet him. And he's now like, eat, take a ragalach. So at this point, I'm just like, I'm wishing the earth would swallow me up. So I take a ragalach and I eat. He's like, they're good, aren't they? My wife made them. Take another one. So at this point, I'm like, well, thank you very much. Delicious. But it was just, I don't know. Maybe you're listening to that story thinking it's strange, but for me, it was a very awkward, strange, weird context. And yet this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to serve someone yourself. It's supposed to be very ordinary. It's supposed to be very natural. Next, cheerfully. When guests arrive at one's home, you should greet them cheerfully and set out food for them immediately, for perhaps they're hungry, but are too ashamed to ask for food. They should provide their needs with a pleasant expression. Even if he is worried about something, you should attempt to keep your concerns hidden so that the guests do not feel that they are inconveniencing their hosts. Oh, thank you so much. You've gone to such great lengths. This is amazing. How are you? Oh, I've got my share of troubles, but here's a coffee. You don't want to say that. You don't want to speak that. You got the weight of the world on your shoulders. You know what you're supposed to do right now? Excuse the pun, swallow it. Excuse the pun. I thought I couldn't avoid that. And put on a brave face and smile. I am so happy you are here right now. Oh my gosh. You have no idea this is amazing. What can I get you to eat? Can I make you a drink? Please. And speak to them pleasantly. Back in the text, one should speak to them pleasantly so that they will feel comfortable. One should not talk about their troubles, since they will think, the guests will think that they are the cause of them and that one is losing all of his money by hosting them. How are you doing? Oh, I'm going through a real tight patch right now. I have to tell you, money's really tight. Here, you want the last of my smoked salmon? Yeah, go on, take the last of my lunch. How are you going to talk like that? And while the guest is eating, the host should express his wish that he could serve them even more and better food. As the verse says, and offer your soul to the hungry. You know what? These are the finest asparagus that you can find in February in Montreal, flown all the way over from Mexico, got them from IGA. My only trouble is I didn't find the white asparagus. Please excuse me. I'm just serving you green asparagus, but I wish I could serve a guest like you. Only the best would be appropriate. And regarding the verse, surely you should break your bread for the hungry. The Zohar teaches that the host should slice the bread in the presence of the guests because they might be ashamed to slice it themselves. Why might they be ashamed to slice it themselves? What a strange thing. Why would a person be ashamed to slice the bread themselves? Because maybe they're really hungry and maybe they want a big, you know when you go, if you've ever had the wonderful privilege of being in a hotel and they serve breakfast. I don't know if you've been in a hotel in Israel, but if you've ever been in a hotel in Israel, the best meal is breakfast. Okay. But even if it's not in Israel, There's other hotels in the rest of the world. Okay, no, there's other hotels. So you go to a hotel and you have breakfast. What do they have at the breakfast table? They have a loaf of bread. And sometimes they have a variety of bread, and they have a bread knife, and you can cut it yourself. When you're on vacation, what do? You make sure you cut a really big, healthy doorstep of bread, right? You get but if someone's coming to your house and you put a loaf of bread in front of them, they're going to be embarrassed. I can't cut a big slice. I need to be modest. I need to be humble. I'm a guest after all. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to cut the bread for them. And cut a healthy slice. Cut a big slice. Don't let them be ashamed that they're now slicing it themselves. You want to prevent embarrassing the guests. Back in the text, to prevent embarrassing the guests, one should not watch them closely or in any way make them self-conscious while they're eating. Incredible. There's a beautiful story here. It's a simple story, an innocent story, but it's similar to what I was sharing with you before. Once upon a time, a guest went to a holy Hasidic Rabbi for one of the meals of Rosh Hashanah, one of the holiest and most auspicious days of the year. The guest was very excited to be in the presence of such a saintly, renowned, holy person. And he was curious, what was his Rosh Hashanah table going to look like when he was entertaining guests, when he was able to be involved in such special spiritual matters? But when the guest sat down at the Rosh Hashanah meal, he was disappointed. He saw that the holy Hasidic Rebbe spent the entire meal speaking to him and all the other guests at the table. He was asking about their welfare. He was inquiring about their health. He was asking about their kids. He was asking them to talk about their jobs. He was asking them to talk about business. He was speaking in a way that would make them feel comfortable, make them feel accepted, and make them feel cared for as his guests. And it was at that point that the individual realized that this was the greatest act of loving kindness and consideration, much more than he ever could have imagined or possibly have thought when he first thought he was going to the holy Hasidic Rebbe's house for Rosh Hashanah. Sometimes we think that the act of hospitality has to be unnatural or exaggerated or something spectacular. You know what it has to be? Something ordinary, something absolutely ordinary, because it's within the ordinary that we'll be able to make our guests feel so well cared for and so loved. And so that was great. And that is truly what it means to host guests. But we go further. What happens if they're spending the night? If the guests are spending the night in one's home, you should give them the best of your bedding. Who here has a spare guest room in their home? Who here has a spare bed? Who here sleeps on your own bed? Let me ask you, how nice is your own bed? It's pretty nice. How nice is the spare bed? It's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, there's a few. Let me ask you another question. How nice is your bedroom? How nicely decorated? It's pretty nice. How nice is the spare bedroom? It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not, but it's not bad. Person sleeps over. You know, there's a tragic story, but this brings out the point so powerfully. Do you remember, I don't remember when this was, I want to say 15 years ago. If anyone remembers and you remember the timeline, correct me. But about 15 years, I mean, plus minus, it might have been 20 years ago, I don't remember. There was a terrible tragedy that happened in a terrorist attack in Mumbai, where the Chabad house in Mumbai, India, was attacked. Do you remember this? It was a horrible tragedy. It was awful. And the parents were both murdered. There was many people murdered. And the terrorists went in. It was absolutely terrible. And the Chabad couple that were living in Mumbai, opening up their home to all guests, the father and mother were both killed. I think it was around 15, 20 years ago. I don't remember exactly. And what happened was, it was disaster, like the disaster. In the Shiva and the stories that were told afterwards, people discovered that this couple, young couple with young children, they had a guest room for guests, and they would welcome guests and they would let them sleep over. Jewish guests, anyone that would come and sleep over. After they were tragically killed, people found out that that was the spare bedroom, and this couple lived in their private bedroom, the main bedroom. The main bedroom was actually the spare bedroom of the house. And this couple lived in a simple room with simple furniture. And the main master bedroom was the room that was done up so beautifully and had the plush beds and the beautiful decor. The host, the couple, actually slept in the spare bedroom that was decorated sparsely. Amazing. Now that's what it means to be a righteous human being. That's what it means to be a righteous human being. Absolutely incredible. There are such people that live in this world. So if someone's sleeping over, give them a great bed. And sometimes, back in the text, a good rest can be even more important than a good meal. And in order to motivate oneself, one should say, if I were the guest, I would certainly want to be treated with respect and concern. I should therefore treat my guests accordingly. And you never know where a person might eventually end up. Who knows? The person that you had over sleeping in your house ended up being Elon Musk. Okay, look at this. This is absolutely incredible. Let's go back into the Torah, text part F in the Torah. What does the Torah say? V'yita eshel b'Be'er Sheva. He planted a tree, an eshel, in Be'er Sheva. B'yikara sham b'shem Hashem kel olam. And he called out there in the name of God, Master of the universe. This is speaking about Avraham. This is speaking about his hospitality. What did he plant? Take a look at that word. He planted a eshel. You see that word I highlighted? An eshel. An eshel is a tree. Planted a tree. Okay. But you know what? So what? Avraham plants a tree. Why would the Torah tell us he planted a tree? If Avraham planted a potato patch, if Avraham was planting tomatoes, if Avraham was, oh, you know what? I like to do gardening in the summer month. Like what, the Torah would record that? So he planted a tree. What's the big deal? He planted a tree. So there must be something more. And the word for tree is not usually eshel. What's usually the word for tree in Hebrew? What's a tree? Who remembers?
Etz.
Etz. Etz. Right? Eitz chaim hi, lamakazichim ba. It's a tree of life for all who hold on to it. So why are we calling this tree a different type of name? Look at the commentary of Rashi. Eshel is an acronym for 3 words. There's an aleph, there's a shin, and there's a lamed. You see that? Eshel, over here. Aleph, shin, lamed. You know what that stands for? Aleph is achila. He gave others food. Shin is shtiya. He gave others drink. And the lamed is leviyah. He gave others lodging. When it says Avraham planted an eshel in Be'er Sheva, it means he gave people food, drink, and lodging. It's an acronym, Aleph, Shin, Lamed. Amazing. Aleph, Shin, Lamed. And now we come to the final idea, and we're going to close with this. This is a very, very important idea. What do you do when the guest leaves? What do you do when the guest leaves? So look at the following. Especially if the guest is not familiar with the way and the roads branch out in several directions, it is a great mitzvah to accompany them, or at least clearly explain where to go so that they will not get lost. when the meal is over, when the night is over, when the evening is finished, okay, bye, have a good evening. Or in the morning when they've slept over and they're now on their way, okay, have a good day. Where are you going? Well, I'm coming with you. I'm your host, of course. I have to accompany you. What are you talking about? Well, I have to accompany you. Or at least let me tell you, you turn left, go right, second leg left, there's the exit. And look what the Maharal does on that idea. Listen to how important accompanying somebody is. This is 16th century Prague, the Maharal. When someone sets out on the way and others see him off, they in effect give honor to the divine image in which he was created. If people fail to do so, it is as if they have shed his blood. For when one is robbed of the honor due to his divine image, this is true bloodshed. Wow, that's a big deal. You know what a human being who has been at your home is? It's the divine image itself. And we need to honor that divine image that is another human being. And if you don't honor the divine image that is another human being, to rob that honor, it's as if you've killed the person. It's as if they don't exist, as if the divine image isn't even there. I want to show you how far this goes. Take a look at Maimonides. How far does this go? Are you ready for this? You're going to fall off your chair. How far must one accompany a guest? And remember, I said at the beginning, every aspect of Judaism is a definition. How big, how much, how far, how tall, how small. Honoring guests, having company, entertaining, it's a mitzvah. So therefore we have to know how much, how far. How far must one accompany a guest after they've finished their meal? A Torah teacher should accompany his disciple. This is the student. So the teacher has had a student over as a guest. If he's a Torah teacher, he should accompany his disciple until just outside the city. Oh my God. You have to walk with them for 3 hours until you're outside the city limits, until you get to Laval. Can you imagine? Let's say that it's not a student of yours, it's a friend. A friend should accompany another to the Shabbat limits. That's about 1 kilometer outside the city. What about if it's one's teacher? One should accompany one's Torah teacher for approximately 4.5 kilometers. And if the guest was one's primary Torah teacher, you should accompany them about 13 kilometers. We're already heading up north. This is amazing. Your primary Torah teacher comes over to you. That's how far you have to accompany them. But we don't do this anymore. This is ridiculous. No one has even heard of this before. Take a look at the Sma. He's writing already in the 1200s in France. Today, we're not in the habit of escorting guests to this extent. So already 800 years ago, no one did this anymore. The reason for this is that it is assumed that people forego the honor. Accompanying a guest was an act of honoring the guest. Nevertheless, one should escort their guest to the gate, or at the very least, 4 amot, approximately 2 meters. Friends, listen carefully. When you have a guest that comes over, you walk them to the door, you walk outside your house, you walk down the driveway with them. Let me ask you the simplest question. Why? We said earlier, it's honoring the image of God that is within them. But why? Why are we doing this? Let me ask you, how is a person going to feel after being at your home and at the end of the evening or the next day if they slept over? You don't just show them to the door. You walk them down the driveway, and there you even take a few steps down the street. How are they going to feel? You all know the answer. Shout it out. What's the answer? How is that person going to feel?
Wanted, still wanted.
Still wanted. Excellent. They're going to feel like $1 million. They're going to feel like they're the most important person in the world. My God, look how kind you are to me. You didn't just feed me. You didn't just welcome me. You didn't just give me the best. You're walking me out. I have a friend who is amazing at this. You know who is amazing at this? My friend, we'll call him Daniel, because that's actually his name. Whenever I speak with my friend Daniel and I say, I might come over, you know what he says? He says, I hope it's really soon. He is so gifted at this. And whenever I say goodbye, he always says, I hope you come back real soon and you stay with me again. He is so, and I always say to my wife, Sarah, I say, Daniel is so amazing at hospitality, because whenever there is any type of communication, you always feel like it's not a burden. Because it could be so subtle. Can I come over for dinner? Yeah, sure. What have you done? You paused, you hesitated, you made a noise. That is so powerful. You've ruined it. Because what is the person thinking about? They're thinking about the I'm an imposition. For the rest of the night, you might have the best night. You might have gone all out. In the person's mind, they don't want me. I should finish quickly. I should get out of here. That's how powerful and how ruinous that has been, unfortunately. Can I come over for dinner? Yeah, I think so. Sure. It's so powerful. Can I come over? I would love that. Or even better, you don't even get to the point where you ask. Stay for dinner. Stay for dinner. We want you. We love you. We love having you over. Stay for dinner. And when you leave, I hope you come back soon. It's the best when you're here. I love it when you're here. You make that person feel like $1 million. You make that person feel wanted. You make that person stand tall. You make that person leave you feeling like that was one of the most incredible experiences. Okay, we're going to pause here. We ran a little bit over. I apologize about that. I'm sorry that you didn't get a message. I'm sorry that it wasn't with the start that we were hoping for, but hopefully the finish has been the finish we've been hoping for.